The hardest part of divorce that nobody talks about. Hey y'all, what's up? If you're new here, my name is Key. I've basically just been journal vlogging my experience with getting married in my 20s and getting a divorce in my 30s. Let's talk about it. On this particular video, I wanted to talk about the hard parts about divorce that you probably wouldn't even know is a hard part, right? And of course, I didn't know that divorce was going to be hard because I didn't know I was going to ever get a divorce, but here we are. Life happens. We're in our 30s. We're a millennial. We're divorcing, and let me tell you what the hardest part was. In my situation, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was dependent on my spouse to go and provide financially and come home and make sure that the bills were taken care of. Part of the reason why we're not together anymore is because he didn't fulfill that, and then he didn't communicate that, and then we didn't have time to come up with a plan before we were SOL. And when I tell you, going from one, depending on someone and them failing is traumatic. Let me just say that. And you know, grandmas and your great aunties and your mamas even probably tell you, never depend on a man. Never ever depend on a man. And then it's like, what does that even mean? What do I didn't even know what I thought I would ever have to depend on a man for. But also, I was in a marriage, so I felt like I should be able to depend on this man. If something go down, what if I hurt my foot and I can't drive? He not gonna drive? You know, but whatever. Silly me. But becoming independent after the dependency traumatically failed. And when I say traumatic, I mean like waking up out of the blue having no clue that you won't have any water or any power and you're getting evicted. Every month it was a surprise. So the hardest part for me was becoming independent after the fact. Like I literally had to change. I had to get a job. And granted, like I had always worked, but at this particular time, it was 2020. It was the pandemic. Just had a baby. I was teaching at the time, but we had randomly moved. So everything was new. Everything was new. Everything was foreign. All we had was each other. So the hardest part about coming here with somebody and everything that y'all build, trying to, you know, uproot and do it again in like a better city, you know, where there's more opportunities, more diversity and things of that nature. Raising kids to do sports, you know, we were track heads. So we knew that coming here and having our kids, you know, do sports would be perfect. Coming from Indiana, you know, we just kind of like had this vision, I thought. But until it became trying to be like grown-ups. We need to talk about where our money was going. We need to talk about our priorities and not trying to say that, oh yeah, my wife stays at home and I give her an allowance because it strokes your ego. It should be because that's just the system that works. And then the system didn't even work. We listen and we don't judge. That was the hard part for me. The hard part was definitely trying to establish stability after being traumatized. You know, and having your livelihood at stake at the hands of somebody else that, you know, didn't really seem like it was a big idea. You know what I mean? Which is why I decided, based off those things and other things that play a significant role in why I chose to leave. That was just a deal breaker for me. Like, we have been doing this for 5 years. And not even staying at home mom. This was our first time doing that, but we have been doing life together for 5 years. We should be able to come to each other and say like, hey, I'm not making enough money to cover everything, so it was probably best that, you know, we, you know, add some income. Cool, bet. I'll start looking, you know, like fixable before it hit the fan. So becoming independent after that was a very hard thing for me, especially like emotionally. I just wasn't there. I was terrified. Everything was changing. I went from living with this man to I don't know where I'm gonna live to living somewhere different every month. That was hard. The homelessness, when I tell you, not knowing where I'm going to sleep all 2023, and when I tell you I slept in a different Airbnb every 30 days from January to October, I wouldn't be lying to you. That was hard. That was hard. Not having a clue. Living out of storage was hard. That was hard. It was just the extra burden. It was the extra bill of it all. It was just the uncertainty of everything. That was hard. That was harder than even deciding to end the whole thing. That part wasn't hard for me because I was emotionally checked out first, and then everything else just came with, me snapping out of depression and able to use my brain again. But divorce can be ugly, and not just because the other person is ugly. I mean, it gets deeper, but it's very disappointing and very embarrassing to have failed at doing life with someone and not being able to reconcile, not being able to at least be willing to admit, take accountability, and like come up with a solution. It just became more and more of like us against each other for whatever reason. I'm not sure, but it was hard enough. Granted, we didn't have any assets together or anything, like just the kids, and like establishing a schedule with that was hard as well. The co-parenting has been a nightmare. A nightmare. And all I want is just peace. All I want is for my kids to be able to have two healthy parents. That's it. When I tell you trying to get someone and hold them accountable when they don't see anything wrong with how they're behaving, they don't see how their behaviors affect the rest of everybody that you are, leading. You were the leader. And it's like the blind leading the blind, you know what I mean? But even if you're lacking in whatever area of leadership, wouldn't you trust the person that has been laying down next to you, watching you, observing you, doing life with you? Wouldn't you want to take heed to what that person may be saying? It was hard. Another thing that was hard, it was hard to not be heard by your person. When you're just telling them, you're just telling them what your experience is with them, and they're just like, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how. It'll mess you up emotionally. Emotionally, it is a trying situation. Going from being dependent to independent and having to make sure that you don't repeat those same, that same mentality of irresponsibility and not setting priorities straight and not being serious about paying bills. Like, it sounds silly, but I have been married to a person who literally makes a habit of being evicted every year. And it took me a while to figure out that pattern. And not just to shame anybody. I'm not going to say any names or anything like that. But just speaking, in my experience, life is hard enough. So when you ask somebody to do life with you, we should have enough trust for us to hold each other to our word and to hold each other accountable, not to be victimized by being held accountable. And that was another main thing that was a deal breaker for me. My spouse wasn't able to have those type of conversations without feeling attacked or belittled, or I'm always right, or I'm just trying to give you some constructive criticism that I feel could help us, especially with you being the leader. So at least take heed to what I'm saying. Listen, Divorce is hard. It's a hard thing to do. I mean, marriage is hard, and it's just like pick your poison. You know what I'm saying? But either way, there's a mentality for marriage. There's a mentality that people need to have. It's not just weddings. It's not just dresses. It's not just photos. You know what I mean? It's like a lifetime partnership of hardship that you have to overcome. It's like that's the promise of the union. We stick to it. But you live and you learn. Thank y'all for watching. I don't know if anybody's going through a divorce or know somebody that has gone through a divorce, and you know, you never really talk to them, you never really let them vent, you never really listen to what it's like for them, male, female, straight, non-straight, whatever, whoever you were with, whatever. Marriage is hard. Going through it is hard. Ending it is hard. I don't wish it on anyone. Stay together. Pick your person. Ask God for your person. Include God in your relationships. Establish that relationship first before any others. If you put any other relationship before the relationship with your own creator, you've already lost. I hope this helps somebody. Let me know what divorce issues you guys are going through, have heard of, what questions, what do you want to talk about. Let me know. I'm here for the divorce support, girlies, guys, whoever. We need a community because it's hard. There are kids involved. It should be about them. We are emotionally scarred, but it's nothing that we can't come back from and to learn from and to do it again and give somebody else a better version of you to see where your next relationship could actually go if you give yourself the marriage mindset.